as you're filming this, I imagine the primary objective is to capture the present, to sort of give an ongoing document. But in doing so, you're essentially creating something that will be a framework that future, whether it's 10, 15, 20 years from now, people will look back on it as sort of a moment in time. Are you aware of that as you're putting the film together, that this is something that could be seen in the future, or are you looking to educate more in the present?
Well, I think in some ways that's sort of the goal of a film like this, as opposed to daily journalism. I mean, you know, daily journalism is said as the first draft of history, right? And then when you're doing a film like this, you have a chance to look at it in perspective. And I hope that the films that, you know, we admire, you know, stick with us. I mean, we'd both, you know, seen Apocalypse Now and read Hearts of Darkness, and, you know, those, you know, especially Hearts of Darkness, been around for a long time. I'm not trying to make any pretentious comparisons, but I'm saying if you write something good, it sticks around. If you make a good film, it sticks around. And I think you want to capture that moment in time, and so it's not ephemeral. And, you know, with a little luck, you know, someone will look at it in a year and say, "Oh, it's a pretty good film." You know, I mean, so I think that's always your hope, is to do something good. And I think what's interesting about what Michael did is he's sort of on both sides of, you know, his feet in both of those worlds, the first draft and also a reflective thing.
And also, you know, obviously this film, you know, records a moment, the birth of the Islamic State and the certain conditions of that period of the Iraq War. Yes, now that can be informative and instructive in trying to understand the events as they're playing out right now. But forget all of that. Put that just aside. We hope there's a universality to this story. This is a film that happens to be in a war that happens to be in Iraq. It could be any war. It could be any time. My aspiration is that ultimately there may be one thin sliver of this film that transcends all of that, because this is the human condition in the extreme that we pray none of you ever have to experience. Because you don't know who you are until you have to be tested like that. You don't know how far you will go. And that's regardless of a US invasion. That's regardless of the emergence of a new terror apparatus. This is the nature of us.
Yeah, so just to add, we had a screening last week at Stanford where I teach, and they someone came up to me afterwards and said, you know, his son's getting into video games and he's a great kid, and you know, he said, but he has this view of like war that's coming out of video games, and he said, look, I want to go home and talk to him about it, because you know, war is from a first-person shooter game. It's a sort of different animal than, you know, the sort of stuff that you're seeing in the film. And I think in some level, you hope you can contribute to that as a way, is to have a sense of the realism of what, you know, the soldiers experience, what Michael experienced, what the civilians experience. I mean, you're trying to paint a real picture, which is sometimes missing, you know, in just the general society that we're in.
And something that we hope serves to assist that understanding is that if there is such a thing as an unwitting documentary, then this is it. I mean, I never set out to be a filmmaker. I wasn't filming this stuff to broadcast. I was a writer who bought a camera on the black market in Kurdistan in the days before the invasion, but who quickly learned the value of the camera as a notebook, and a decade later, the value of those tapes as my visual memory.